The two best Christmas gifts anyone can ask for are two meaningful AFC playoff games on the same day, separated by half an hour. Welcome to the Christmas Day NFL breakdowns. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Max. I make these every single week for the Thursday night game, the Monday night game, the biggest games on Sunday, and any special games. And this week especially, guys, we got this past Monday Night Football, Green Bay, New Orleans. We got games on Wednesday. We got games on Saturday. We got games on Sunday. And then another Monday Night Football game after that. So if you're new, you've never been here before, make sure you subscribe and join the family. By the time you're watching this, we may have already hit 10,000 subscribers, which is unbelievable. We've been extremely blessed as a community to be able to grow like this. If you're not a part of it, make sure you do. We are now on the road to 20K, assuming we do hit that 10,000 number. But I appreciate you guys coming back. If you've been here before, you like this type of content, make sure you leave a like on this video. It lets me know you enjoy this type of stuff as well. And if you want to leave any comments, any picks that have worked for you, anything that you've liked me talking about or want to see me talk about more, make sure you do so. Now, we will get into the picks, we will get into the data and everything like that. But if you are new and you don't know what this is, we break down the statistical information based on coverage data, run scheme metrics, and overall logistical info about every big game. We got Chiefs at Steelers at 1 p.m. Eastern, depending on your time zone. And then we have Ravens at Texans at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, both on Christmas. There's some hockey on Christmas. There's a basketball on Christmas. You got to make sure you're in tune with all this stuff. And my picks for all these games, I'm going to show you how to get them right now. Below, as you can see, let me pull up my screen real quick for you. But below are links to my Instagram, as well as my X, and a couple other free picks. Now, if you're looking for all my picks, they're going to be on Instagram. You have to make sure you're following my Instagram. That is the number one place to stay in touch with me, to see all of my picks, especially as it relates to the 5-man entries or any Loeb's lays. We've done 4 Loeb's lays starting this past Saturday, and we are 3-1. They're all plus money, plus value, 3-1 on those. Make sure you stay involved with those. Follow to make sure you see them. And then my fun picks, my touchdown score, as well as a thread of every single thing that I'm riding for the given day, given week, will all be on X. So make sure you're following on there. You can turn on your notifications if you want here on YouTube as well. Maybe it'll help you see stuff sooner. But if you're not following those already, make sure you are. And then if you guys are looking for some free cash to make your picks with, as well as some special Christmas promos for all these sites, Sleeper, Underdog, and Better Picks will all give you some bonus cash and a free pick if you join with code LEADS, L-E-A-D-S. Sleeper is going to give you a free half-yard pick and 11 free additional entries after you join. Underdog's also going to give you a free half-yard pick and a deposit bonus up to $1,000. And Better Picks going to match your first deposit up to $200, as well as giving you a free half completion pick. So make sure you guys get on that if you haven't already. Without further ado, though, let's talk about these games, man. Let's talk about these games. We're going to start with Chiefs-Steelers. The beautiful thing is, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, is that all 4 of these teams played this past Saturday, and we had a Saturday breakdown for each of those matchups. So if you watch that, you're probably moderately familiar with these teams, and it's a short week, so not much is going to change in general. But looking at what these teams did this past Saturday, which we actually did really well on predictions, both Loeb's lays, the Loeb's lay in each game hit. It's pretty similar. A lot of the stuff is very similar. We can start with Kansas City. They're on the road at Pittsburgh. They are 3-point favorites. Looking at some data outliers, we can pull up the pass data here. They are allowing the 12th highest pass attempts per game, but middle of the pack in terms of pass yards per game, in terms of running back, on the ground production, reception production. Very, very good. Not allowing really anything. Wide receiver production, 11th most receptions per game, but only 26th most wide receiver yards per game, which is very interesting. Now, on the other side, I actually saw this maybe 10 minutes before I started recording. George Pickens on Monday, depending on when you're watching this, but on Monday was a full participant. I can only assume he's going to play this Wednesday. It sounded like, honestly, guys, if the Steelers-Ravens game was a day later or it was Monday Night Football, he may have played, but they played Saturday. Quicker turnaround. You got a big game at home against Kansas City after that. Sounds like he's going to play. The other thing I want to talk about, Chiefs against tight ends, really bad. 3rd most receptions per game, most yards per game to opposing tight ends. When you go look at some of the game logs against the Kansas City Chiefs, they're really struggling, especially as it relates to the kind of flexed out rather than just traditional inline tight end, which a lot of tight ends are becoming now. But there are some games where these guys run a good amount of routes from the slot, which we'll talk about target rates at the end here, but Chiefs are being targeted in the slot at the highest rate in the league. That's part of the reason they're giving up so much tight end production. But you can go look at some of these games with guys like Dalton Schultz flexed out a lot, 5 for 45 and a touchdown. Obviously, Brock Bowers is more of a hybrid guy, 10 for 140 and a touchdown. And even the traditional inline guys were fine. Like, they didn't get to see David Njoku in week 15, but 3 for 30 for Akins, 3 for 54 for Smart. Sanders is kind of flexed out guy, but not really a main option in the pass game. Dawson Knox, 4 for 40, and then Cade Otton, a ton of routes from the slot. This is without Mike Evans when he was the number one option, too. 8 for 77 and a touchdown. Obviously, Bowers, 5 for 58. Kittle, another guy who's flexed out a lot, 6 for 92. Pitts, 59 yards. Isaiah Likely, that big game in week 1. Mike Gesicki had a bunch of yards and receptions. They struggle against tight ends. Now, truthfully, guys, I'm not going to put a ton of stock in Pat Freiermuth, especially if George Pickens is back. Now, I did break down some numbers without Pickens. They liked Mike Williams a little bit, but number one, they don't like Mike Williams enough for me to say I'm putting serious stock in him. But number two, it sounds like Pickens is playing. A full participant two days before the game, would be shocked if he did not play. Would be shocked. But you got to understand the Chiefs play a ton of man-to-man coverage. A ton of man-to-man coverage. The 7th most in the NFL, 34.2%. Behind a couple teams like Detroit, Jacksonville. Who else am I forgetting here? But teams like that, regardless. Top 7 in terms of man coverage rate. But when they play zone, they rarely play cover 3. It's a lot of middle field open. So cover 2, cover 4, cover 6. Russ is significantly better against middle field closed zones compared to middle field open zones. But in terms of just man zone overall, way better against man coverage. 7th most fantasy points per drop back in the entire NFL against man coverage. Now, George Pickens against man coverage targeted 38 times, 18 receptions, and 3.28 yards per route run. We talk about the elite threshold of 3+ yards per route run against man coverage. There's somebody else in this game that has it, believe it or not, on the other side. And we'll talk about somebody in the Houston game that has it too. But really good against man coverage. He's going to get his one-on-ones, and he's going to take advantage. Now, I look at the Chiefs, and I'm a little concerned with the production against them. Like, you can look at guys like Jacoby Myers had a big game against the Chiefs. But like Tank Dell, not a true dominant number one. He was the leading wide receiver against the Chiefs. Jerry Jeudy had a great game. But here you go. Like, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, how are you going to confidently lean into one of those guys as the true number one wide receiver when you look at their projections? I don't know. Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. Again, Myers was the guy here, had a very good game. Then you look at Moore, Thielen, Leggett. In terms of overall receptions, pretty evenly distributed. Shakir, Samuel, Amari Cooper barely did anything on the outside here. And the Chiefs are being targeted on the outside at the 2nd lowest rate in the league. Very important to note that too. Obviously, like I said, Pickens runs a bunch of routes from the outside. I look at some of the production, and there's no enormous games from these guys. There's no crazy 100-yard performances, obviously, outside of Jacob Myers. Oh, I thought he had 97 and then Jeudy. But the opportunities are going to be there for wide receivers for a couple reasons. Number one, the target rate. But I look at the slot target rate, and I look at the explosive ability, even though he's really not getting a ton of targets against man. But I look at the explosive ability of Calvin Austin, who is their main slot guy. Again, Steelers aren't throwing to the slot a ton, but Calvin Austin is their slot guy. He's getting the vast, vast majority of the slot targets where the Chiefs are being targeted at the highest rate. There's going to be opportunities for him. And again, you look at the Chiefs, 2nd fewest rush attempts per game, fewest rush yards per game. Even though the Steelers are going to commit to the run game, that's what they do, that's their identity, I don't think they're going to have a ton of success. So I want to pull up one thing really quick with Calvin Austin here, because a lot of times it's been really good to us throughout the entire year when you know there's going to be some type of advantage in terms of overall production, but you don't know if the volume is going to be there. You look at longest catch or longest yard. Now, let me pull up the game real quick here. Stand by. But you can look at his projections and see, like, share my screen with you guys. You can look at the projections for Calvin Austin and see in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip that one, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, he's had a reception of 17+ yards. He's had a double-digit yard reception. Here we had a 13 in, what do we say, 8 games now. So he is has the explosive ability. And we can look at some of the man-heavy teams. Like Baltimore is a more man-heavy team. 44. Cleveland, he had that big touchdown catch, man-heavy team, but he didn't here, which is interesting to note. Any other man-heavy teams? See Baltimore again. Jets very man-heavy. Vegas very man-heavy. So, again, these man-heavy teams, he has the opportunity to stretch the field, to have explosive plays. I'm not telling you he's going to get 4 to 5 targets, but explosive plays for Calvin Austin is what I'm looking at. Now, Pickens' projection is not out just yet. Obviously, it will be on Sleeper, so make sure you join Underdog, Better Picks, all that good stuff. And I'll have it on my Instagram and Twitter below. But I think about it, and it is out. He's projected 62 yards. 62 yards in a game where the Steelers are going to have to pass the football. He's had 62 yards in 5 of 6 games. He's played 6 games with Russ. 62 yards in 5 of 6 games with Russ. I just think it's too low, guys. Especially if you're going to get man across the board. He's going to have plenty of opportunity. And like I said, the Steelers are going to have to throw the football. I like it a lot. And I also do look at Pickens' one game he did not have 62. It was against Cleveland in the snow. So I look at Pickens. I trust him. I trust his health. Let's talk other side here, though. Steelers, again, very good against the run, not giving up a ton of attempts, not giving up a ton of yards per game. They also struggle in terms of overall receptions per game and yards per game against tight ends. Now, the very interesting thing to note here, wide receiver production, they're 21st in receptions per game, so they're not giving up a ton of catches, but 12th in yards per game, running the 8th most man coverage right behind the Kansas City Chiefs at 33.3% and the most middle field close. Now, Mahomes, not great against middle field close coverage overall, 18th most fantasy points per drop back, which is, again, not crazy. But I saw something last week that I really liked. In terms of target percentage against man when they were on the field, Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown really stuck out to me. Now, Worthy was targeted 6 times against man. He had 2 catches against man. Hollywood Brown, we talked about that 3-yard threshold, right? Hollywood Brown came back, only played 27% of snaps. 4 targets, 3 catches, 3.89 yards per route run against man. He was beating man. He was creating separation, and he was getting opportunities. Now, truthfully, I look at Brown and I look at Worthy. Worthy's projected 45 yards. I think that's too low. Brown's projected 41 yards. I think that's too low. You can go look at some of these receivers against the Steelers in the past. They're producing. That's the bottom line. It isn't anything super crazy or super out of the ordinary, but those numbers, 45, 41, like look at this. Zay Flowers had 100. Devontae Smith had 100. A.J. Brown had 100. Jerry Jeudy had 64. You had T. Higgins, Jamar Chase with 69 plus apiece. Jerry Jeudy with 85 in the snow game. Nothing here from the Ravens, but Terry McLaurin with 113. Darius Slayton with 108. Malik Neighbors with 71. Garrett Wilson, 61. Allen Lazard, 58. Like, I look at some of these games, guys, those projections are just way too low, especially because, number one, Kansas City Chiefs, as time has gone on, even with Isaiah Pacheco coming back, guys, have run the ball less and less. Their pass offense is finding a groove. And I think, a lot of people who watch football, don't like the way the Chiefs are winning, and I get it. They're not believers in what they're doing, and I understand that. But I think it forces us to almost overlook the fact that Mahomes is playing better, their pass offense is playing better. I think it's been the addition of Hopkins, to be honest with you. I think that's what's done it. But Hopkins, 35 yards 35-yard projection. He's hit it in 3 of the last 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of 8 games with Mahomes, discounting that Vegas game because he played like 27% of snaps. But like, I look at that, guys. You really want to ride any of those receivers. I think what you could do, and I honestly might just do this, 25 Hollywood, 25 Worthy, 25 Hopkins. I honestly think you could go 25 Worthy and 25 Brown. Actually, I'll put that together, see what it looks like right now. See if it's 2x. I don't know if it would be 2x. It's not 2x, but 25 apiece for all those. Yeah, it's just under 2x. So like you could do that too, and I don't think that'll be any issue. Again, Chiefs not really running the ball a ton, not running the ball super effectively. Steelers' run defense is very good. But the most important thing, we said most middle field close in the NFL. That means oftentimes, whether it's pre or post snap rotation, an extra safety or somebody else will rotate into the box. You'll keep one safety up high. Somebody else will rotate down to the box. Mahomes, very heady at the line of scrimmage, can see that, will see that, check out of the run because you don't want to run against 8 guys in the box. I think they're going to pass a ton. I almost look at Patrick Mahomes' pass attempts, and I lean that way too because I don't know how well the Steelers will be able to move the ball offensively, but 36 pass attempts. I mean, he's hit that in 4 straight. He's hit 36 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the last 10. 8 of 9 with Hopkins. Like, I look at that, and I think he's just going to throw the ball a ton. You can look at his yards. You can look at his pass attempts. The bottom line on both sides really here, guys. And target rates don't really matter here. The only marriage that's good, Steelers are allowing inline tight end targets, the 14th highest. Chiefs are targeting inline at the 6th highest. Kelsey, second most targets against man, but I think the Steelers are going to do everything they can to take him out of the game. Regardless, most important thing on both sides of this game, they are going to pass. It's going to be a pass fest, guys. At least if they want to move the football down the field. These teams will not have success offensively running the football. Now, I do kind of think Steelers +3 off back-to-back losses coming back home against a bad offensive line. I might just ride that, to be honest with you guys. But I do think this is going to be a close game. Teams will have to pass. I think Mahomes got to pass the ball a ton. But that's the bottom line. Pass fest, especially in this game. We can look at some red zone data. There were no kicker outliers. We can look at some red zone data here. Refresh these because these are a week old. But you look at the red zone data. This is red zone defense. You have Pittsburgh here above average. Kansas City above average in the red zone. Now, looking at that, Pittsburgh's offense, I actually might think about Chris Boswell field goals too, just looking at it very raw. Kansas City's red zone offense is, where are they at? Also down here. This could be a field goal fest, guys. This could be a field goal fest, especially if the Steelers get after Mahomes on third down. Maybe you look at that too. I think you would have to go back and look at some game logs to really lean into that. And if I do lean into that, that will obviously be on my Instagram and X. So make sure you're following below. But pass fest, you're going to throw the ball. It's going to be big chunk plays, I think, because they play a lot of man. If you're looking for guys to have big chunk plays, I mean, obviously Pickens, but Calvin Austin's explosive against man coverage, and they're getting targeted in the slot a good amount. And then I'd rather go with a beast I know than a beast I don't. And I think Worthy being projected 4 more yards than Brown, I'd lean Worthy before I lean Brown, but I truthfully like both of them, especially watching Hollywood Brown play. The fact that he had, I believe it was 8 targets, 5 catches in his first game playing less than 30% of snaps. That says a lot to me. Let's move to the other game, Ravens, Texans. Now, this is also going to be a pass fest. The reality is we're looking at 4 pretty good run defenses, and the Ravens defense overall is just playing better and better, but their run defense is suffocating. 4th fewest attempts, second fewest yards, 4th fewest attempts, second fewest yards. Texans, 11th fewest attempts, 9th fewest yards. Teams don't run the ball in Houston. They don't. Now, what Houston does defensively is very difficult to break down, and we talked about that Saturday. It's very balanced. Last Saturday, it was 18th most, I think, zone, and 14th most man. They balanced it out. Now it's 17th zone, 15th man. So it became more balanced after another game. We don't want to lean too far into that. But here's the thing. Coverage-wise, they're balanced. And you look at the run game overall statistically, and you're like, yeah, they're pretty good. The Baltimore Ravens are one of the most explosive run teams in the NFL, whether it's Lamar, whether it's Derrick Henry. The Houston Texans are giving up the 3rd highest explosive run percentage in the NFL. 3rd highest. Now, again, you look at that, explosive pass play, explosive run play numbers, explosive rushes have been great to us all year long. You go look at Derrick Henry's game log, guys. 11 of 15 games at a 20-plus yard rush. The others were 19 yards and then 13, 9, and 11. And he's had a 27-plus yard rush in 10 of 15 games. Regardless of run defense, and again, that Steelers team, that's a good run defense. Philly's a good run defense. They got LA when they were moderately healthy, playing well. Pittsburgh, again, obviously. Denver, good run defense. Cleveland at the beginning of the year with JOK was a pretty solid run defense. Vegas and KC. 11 of 15 games with a 20-plus yard rush against good rush competition. Like Henry's producing against the best. I think I like it. I do. If you want to add that as a leg, I like that a lot. His longest rush is a little bit above 20. That's why I looked at the 27 number, 10 of 15 games. But the Ravens are 5-point favorites here. I trust them to beat Houston, to be honest with you guys. they're going to run the football. They're going to run the football. Now, looking at what Houston does defensively in terms of their production, receptions and yards, the way to go, especially when you look at wide receivers. Now, recently they've been bad against tight ends. That was part of the reason we lead Kelsey alternate receptions in the Loeb's lay that hit this past Saturday. But we had Hopkins in there, 25 plus easy. You could have had, again, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy last game, 25 plus easy, whatever you want. But this game, I think you do something very similar. Now, truthfully, picking anybody straight against Houston outside of like your Derrick Henry longest rush is terrifying. It really is, especially because even though they've been bad against tight ends recently, they've been good against them all year long. I think you look at Zay, maybe like 40 plus. And again, all this stuff will be in the Loeb's Lay on Instagram. But Zay 40 plus. They're providing very good floors for wide receivers because, again, 14th most receptions given up, 10th most yards given up. And the Ravens are going to throw the football regardless if they're winning by 10 or losing by 10. That's what they do. But the run game is going to be centric. Derrick Henry's going to get plenty of carries, especially if they're winning. Explosive run there. And truthfully, I hate breaking down Texans games because there's really not too much more to talk about with them, but that's really it. 8th most pass attempts, but again, in a game where you're 5-point favorites, do you really think Lamar's going to really air the football out? I don't know. I don't think so. But they're only giving up 25th most yards. That's bottom 10 in terms of overall production. Like, Texans, a little complicated. That's why I think when you look at them, you don't really pick straight. You don't go anybody straight. You don't. You can pick your 2 favorite or 3 favorite, water them down, put them together. That's what we did last week. It worked last week. 2 weeks ago, truthfully, we did, I think it was Tyreek Hill. Yeah, Tyreek Hill, just straight yards. It was close, but it did not hit. So I think against Houston, because they do so many different things, they show so many different looks, you don't even think about like, oh, yeah, Zay's line is 60, whatever it is. Let's go over or let's go under. Water him down, pair it with something else on the other side, and there's some really good stuff on the other side in this game, or pair with something in the other game, which I will do and I'll show you guys. And I think that'll be much better. Now, Baltimore, 2nd most pass attempts, 2nd most pass yards, wide receivers, 5th most receptions, 4th most yards, tight ends, 8th most receptions, 7th most yards. So they're giving up a lot of yards in the air. Truthfully, guys, I think if you want to lean into anybody in the pass game in Houston, you might be good. Like, I think they're just going to have to pass all game long. Now, Ravens run the 11th most man in the league, more man heavy than zone heavy, but like we talked about last Saturday, they've been much better in the secondary lately, and they've been playing even more man coverage. They're trusting their guys on the outside more. They're playing more man coverage. Now, against man coverage, we all know Nico Collins is great, and we leaned into his yards last week. He was like, I want to say he was 12 yards short of his line. Regardless, probably going to do it again. Like, against man coverage, I don't know who CJ Stroud is going to throw the ball else to. Like, that is the bottom line right now. I'm going to pull you guys the snaps from the Houston Texans game after Tank Dell got injured. Now, prayers up for Tank Dell. That was a very scary injury. But you look at some of these numbers after Dell got injured in this game. Right here, Xavier Hutchinson up to 58%. Obviously, no John Mechie this past game. Robert Woods, 58%. But Woods was playing at least more than Hutchinson was in some of these past weeks. Now, Hutchinson got hurt, came back from the injury, and dramatically increased his snap share. To me, that makes me think Hutchinson will have, I guess, you're looking at the 2nd most wide receiver snaps on the team, I guess, behind Nico Collins. Now, there's going to be other guys that come in and out, and truthfully, I'm not going to lean into that too much. But we talked about the Ravens being bad against tight ends too. 8th most receptions, 7th most yards. To me, Dalton Schultz is going to have an increased role in this pass game because he's pretty good against man. Actually has, Nico Collins missed a few games, but actually has as many targets as Nico Collins overall against man coverage. Catching the ball at a decent rate, 2nd highest target percentage on the Texans against man coverage. The only thing is the yards per out run is not there. And that to me is always the big indicator of somebody's explosive against man coverage. But we can go look at some game logs against for this Baltimore Ravens team. And you can feel moderately comfortable with your tight ends in this game. You can go look at, obviously, Pat Freiermuth didn't really do anything, but he had 3 catches, 35 apiece for Bellinger, for Goddard, 47 for Disley, 42 for Washington, 42 for Hudson, 30 for Gesicki. Nothing here, but Denver doesn't throw their tight ends. Njoku was 61. Kate Otten with a big game. Ertz with a good game. Ferguson, Kincaid, Bowers. Like, there's pretty good floors for these guys who are the number 3 option in their pass offense, or even the number 2 option. Now, Dalton Schultz is going to be thrust into that role. Again, this is a game where I hesitate to pick really anybody but Nico Collins straight. Actually, there's one more we'll talk about in a second. But I hesitate to pick anybody but Nico Collins straight. So if you want to water down Schultz, I can look at Schultz's projection right now. You water him down to like 25. You water Zay Flowers down to like 40, and you compare it with a game outcome or whatever else you want to do. But I look at Schultz right now, like it's 33 yards. 33 yards is too low. He had 45 last week. Jacksonville, another very man-heavy team. He actually had 61 yards. Let's see. Detroit, man-heavy team, 66. Jets, man-heavy, he only had 21. New England, only 27, but 8 targets. And again, that was without Nico Collins, so you can expect more volume without your number one. 34 again against Jacksonville. Against man, he's surprisingly better than what you'd think, which is very interesting. The only other person I want to talk about here is Joe Mixon, because his receiving projection is not out yet. But you can look at his projections or pass production: 14 yards, 33 yards, 18, 23, 44, 44, 0, 32, 9, 30, 25, 19. So a pretty safe floor of like 17, 18, 19 yards. Look at some of these game logs against the Baltimore Ravens, guys. That was why we were on Jaylen Warren last week. 6 straight games, guys, of 3+ receptions for running backs. 6 straight games. Sorry, 6 of the last 7, not Philly. 6 straight games minus the Philly game. 6 of the last 7. Jaylen Warren, Devin Singletary, J.K. Dobbins, Jaylen Warren again, Chase Brown, Jaleel McLaughlin. Like, these guys are producing at a high level in the pass game because the Ravens are being targeted out of the backfield at a ridiculous rate, the 8th highest rate in the NFL. You talk about target rate marriages. That's what we always want to find. The Texans are throwing to running backs at the 12th highest rate, and nobody touches Joe Mixon in terms of route participation. And again, Nico Collins, we talked about him being the main out wide guy, really good against man. Texans are throwing out wide the 7th highest rate. Ravens are allowing an above average amount of targets to go out wide. So Nico Collins will have opportunities. The inline tight end target rate scares me, but I think the volume for Schultz will just be good enough that he doesn't have to worry about it. But Mixon receiving, Nico receiving, Derrick Henry longest run. You want to water down Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, go ahead, be my guest. But the way I'm going to lean in this game for sure is a Loeb's lay, and that will be on my Instagram below. In the other game, like we talked about, Chiefs Steelers, you like George Pickens a lot, you like Worthy a lot, you like Hollywood Brown a lot. I trust those guys. Especially against man coverage, because it's going to be explosive plays, even Calvin Austin a little bit, explosive plays, and that's the bottom line. But that's what we have for the Christmas Day games. If you guys enjoyed this video, again, make sure to leave a like below. Make sure to follow the socials and get your bonus cash below as well. On Wednesday afternoon, so Christmas Day afternoon, we will have the Thursday night breakdown out for you guys. Some good data on another game that's going to be very, very interesting, very important playoff implications for some of these games this weekend. Got 3 full games Saturday. That breakdown will be out Thursday night. And then we obviously got the Sunday slate. That breakdown will be out Friday afternoon. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that stuff. God bless you guys. I hope you have a great Christmas. If you're watching this on Christmas, we will see you next time. Enjoy.